Good morning, dear children. Welcome back. In today's session, we are going to continue our learning process of Class 7, Term 3, Unit 1 in Social Science, History, New Religious Ideas and Movements. This is Part 3 of the video series. Come children, let us learn. Dears, before going into today's session, let us have a recap of what we learned in the previous sessions. In the sessions, we discussed about the beginnings of Bhakti Movement. Medieval India saw an extraordinary production of devotional poetry which were not restricted to any particular religion but inspired by different religious movements. And the exponents were called as Bhakti saints. It is also believed that one does not have to go to temples or perform rituals, for God is omnipresent and resides inside every human. The Bhakti movement, or the resurgence of devotional practices, started in Tamilnadu around 7th century AD. It included reciting the name of the god or goddesses, singing hymns in his praise, wearing religious marks or carrying identity emblems, undertaking pilgrimages to sacred places associated with the deity. It emphasized the mutual emotional attachment and love of a devotee towards a personal god and of the god for the devotee. This view also was preached by Sufism, which appeared as a reaction against worldliness of early Islam. Sufis believed that realization of God can be achieved only through passionate devotion to God and intense meditation. They argued that doing so would liberate the devotee from all worldly bonds and help them become one with God. We also learned about the Alvars, the Vaishnavite Bhakti sages and the originators of Bhakti cult, and Nayanmars, the worshippers of Shiva or Saivites, who composed devotional hymns in Tamil language dedicated to their respective gods. Poems to Shiva and Vishnu, particularly to Krishna, were composed in Tamil and other South Indian languages like Kannada and Telugu. These poet saints criticized caste-based social status and advocated gender equality. Vishnu Bhakti or Vaishnavism was based on Vishnu's avatars or incarnations, particularly Krishna and Rama. The 12 Tamil Alvars are chiefly known for their immortal hymns. Two Alvars stand out distinctly. Nammalvar's fame lies in his 1102 stanza Thiruvaimozhi, and Nada Muni collected the 4000 poems of Nammalvar in the form of Divya Prabandham. Periyalvar, who was earlier known as Vishnu Chittar, made lots of songs on Krishna, putting himself in the place of Mother Yashoda. Andal was the only female Alvar. The Tirupavai, or the Path to Krishna, and Nachiyar Tirumozhi, the sacred songs of a lady, are her celebrated works. Her poems expressing her love for Ranganatha, the incarnation of Vishnu, worshipped at a temple at Srirangam, are used in Vaishnava wedding ceremonies of Tamil Nadu. Among the 63 Nayanmars, or the Saivite saints, Nanasambandar, Appar and Sundarar, often called Trio, are worshipped as saints through their images in South Indian temples. Nambi Andar Nambi is said to have compiled the songs of all the Nayanmars that form the basis of Tirumurai, the basic Tamil Saivite sacred canon. It consists of 12 books and 11 of them were assembled by Nambi. The 12th book is Sekkirar's Periya Puranam. We also discussed about Adi Shankara or Shankaracharya, who preached the Advaitha Philosophy. The essence of this philosophy is that the soul or the Atma unites with the universal soul or Brahma through the attainment of knowledge. His masterpiece is a commentary on the Brahma Sutra, which is a fundamental text of Vedanta school. Ramanuja was an 11th century Vaishnava saint and was the most influential thinker of Vaishnavism. His philosophy, Vishishta Advaita, proclaims that the soul retains its identity even after uniting with Brahma. Ramanuja established centers to spread his doctrine of devotion, Sri Vaishnavism, to God Vishnu and his consort Lakshmi. In the 16th and 17th centuries, Vaishnavism spread across India. The Vadakalai Vaishnavism flourished in Kanchipuram, was a center for Sanskrit learning. Tenkalai Vaishnavism, centered on Srirangam, stressed the importance of Divya Prabandhams written by 12 Alvars in Tamil. Dear children, in this session, we will discuss about the Bhakti movements in North India. Before going into today's topic, Bhakti movements in North India, let me give you a brief introduction. An important landmark in the cultural history of medieval India was a silent revolution in society brought by a galaxy of socio-religious reformers, a revolution known as the Bhakti movement. And this movement was responsible for many rites and rituals associated with the worship of God by Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs of the Indian subcontinent, like a kirtan at a Hindu temple, Kavali at a dargah by a Muslim, and singing of Gurbani at a Gurudwara are all derived from the Bhakti movement of medieval India. The leader of this Hindu revivalist movement was Shankaracharya or Adi Shankara, a great thinker and a distinguished philosopher. And this movement was propounded by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Namadeva, Tukaram, Jayadeva. And this movement major achievement was its abolition of idol worship. The leader of the Bhakti movement, focusing on the Lord as Rama, was Ramananda. Very little is known about him, but he is believed to have lived in the first half of the 15th century. He taught that Lord Rama is the Supreme Lord and that salvation could be attained only through love for and devotion to him and through the repetition of his sacred name. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was an ascetic Hindu monk and social reformer, and Chaitanya worshipped the Lord in the form of Krishna. Dear children, while dealing with the religious movements of the 14th and the 15th centuries in northern India, one has to keep in mind the two very different attitudes which Hindu religious leaders had towards Islam. So, during the 14th and the 15th century in northern India, the Hindu religious leaders had two different attitudes towards the Islam. The one group accepted what was best in Islam. One group of Hindu religious leaders accepted which was good in or which was best in Islam. The other adopted a few elements in order to prevent conversion to Islam. While the other group, one group accepted what was best in Islam, but the other group adopted few elements, and the reason for their adoption was to prevent the conversion to Islam. People were getting converted to Islam. They were influenced by the teachings of Islam, so they were getting converted. So the Hindu religious movement leaders tried to adopt elements from the Islam. Both reacted to Islam, but one was sympathetic while the other was hostile. One had a very sympathetic, very open-minded approach towards the other religion, Islam, but the other group was very hostile, very aggressive. Kabir and Guru Nanak and other founders of new sects are included in the first group. That is, those people were trying to accept what was best in Islam, while the movements in Bengal associated with Chaitanya Deva or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu belongs to the later tendency. The leaders like Chaitanya Deva or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very hostile towards the Islam. Even though they adopted a few elements to prevent the conversion, they were very hostile towards the Islam. Now children, let us learn about the exponents of Bhakti movement. Exponent. Exponent is a person who supports an idea or theory and tries to persuade people of its truth or the benefits. We will learn about the people who tried to persuade people into the Bhakti movement. It was Ramananda who spread the Bhakti ideology in northern India, where it became a mass movement. We have the first one, the main exponent was Ramananda. Vallabhacharya, a Telugu philosopher, built a temple for Lord Krishna on Govardhan Hills near Madura. So Vallabhacharya built a temple on Govardhan Hills near Madura for Lord Krishna. Surdas, a blind poet and a musician, was associated with this temple as well as that of Agra. His famous collection of poetry is called Sur Sagar. So you can see Ramananda spread the Bhakti ideology in northern India. Vallabhacharya, who was a Telugu philosopher, built a temple for Lord Krishna, where he built it on the Govardhan Hills, which was near Madura. And in that you can find Surdas, a blind poet and a musician. He was a poet as well as a musician, and his famous collection of poetry is called as Sur Sagar. Dear children, Mirabai, wife of the Crown Prince of Mewar, was an ardent devotee of Lord Krishna. Mirabai was a wife of Crown Prince of Mewar, and she was a devotee, a strong devotee of Lord Krishna. She was also a disciple of Ravidas. He was a guru and she followed Ravidas. Mirabai gained popularity through her bhajans. The bhajan she sang in the praise of Lord Krishna was very famous. Mirabai was a kind of social reformer at that time. She accepted Ravidas, a Dalit by birth, as her guru. It is Ravidas who gave her the statue of Krishna all those years ago when she was a small girl. She treated Lord Krishna as her husband and was persecuted by her in-laws for her religious devotion. Chaitanya Deva, dear children, popularized Krishna worship through ecstatic songs and dancing that had profound effect on Vaishnavism in Bengal. So, Chaitanya Deva popularized Krishna worship through ecstatic songs. Ecstatic, E-C-S-T-A-T-I-C. Ecstatic is very happy. And he made happy songs and dancing and popularized the Krishna worship. In the 16th century, in Tulsidas' Hindi retelling of the story of Rama in Ramacharita-manas, the sentiment of friendship and loyalty is stressed. And you can find 16th century Tulsidas retold the story of Rama in the Ramacharita-manas, and the friendship and loyalty are stressed in that. Many of those poems continue to be recited and sung, often at all-night celebrations. Such songs are often sung at all-night celebrations. So you can find Chaitanya Deva popularizing Krishna worship through his happy songs or aesthetic songs and dancing, which had an effect on Vaishnavism in Bengal. And in the 16th century, Tulsidas' Ramacharita-manas, stressing on the sentiments of friendship and loyalty, also created an impact on the Bhakti movement. And these poems were recited all night celebrations. On the picture, you can find the exponents of Bhakti movement. You can find Ramananda, who spread the Bhakti movement in North India, and Vallabhacharya, who was a Telugu philosopher, who built a temple for Lord Krishna on the Govardhan Hills. Surdas, who was a blind poet and a musician, who wrote Sur Sagar. Mirabai, an ardent devotee of Lord Krishna, who was popular because of her bhajans. Then you have Chaitanya Deva, who popularized Krishna worship through aesthetic songs and dancing, and Tulsidas, who wrote Ramacharita-manas, stressing on the sentiment of friendship and loyalty. Dear children, in the picture you can find Tukaram and the Panduranga temple at Pandaripuram. Tukaram was a 17th century saint poet of Maharashtra who is known for his spiritual songs, abhangras or kirtanas, devoted to Vidoba, an avatar of Krishna. There is a Vidoba or a Panduranga temple at Pantarpur or Pandaripuram in Sholapur district, Maharashtra. What is Chaitanya Deva to Bengal is Tukaram to Maharashtra. Dear children, now let us learn about Sufism. The term Sufi is used for Muslim saints who attempted to achieve development of their faculties through aesthetic exercises, contemplation, renunciation and self-denial. Sufism has become a universal aspect of Islamic social life as its influence extended over almost the entire Muslim community. The Sufi saints, transcending all religious and communal distinctions, worked for promoting the interest of humanity at large. Sufis were a class of philosophers remarkable for their religious beliefs. They regarded God as a supreme beauty and believed that one must admire it, take delight in his thought and concentrate his attention only on him. Sufism is considered into 4 different orders. They were Chistis, Suharwadis, Khadiriyas and Naqshbandis. Sufism rebelled against all forms of religious formalism, orthodoxy, falsehood and hypocrisy, and endeavored to create a new world order in which spiritual bliss was the only and ultimate goal. The most important contribution of Sufism is that it helped to blunt the edge of Hindu-Muslim prejudice by forging the feelings of solidarity and brotherhood between the two religious communities. With this introduction, let us learn about Sufism in India. The advent of Sufis into India dates back to the Arab conquest of Sindh. It gained prominence in the 10th and 11th centuries during the reign of the Delhi Sultans. Sufism adopted many native Indian concepts such as yogic postures, music and dance. So we can see the advent of Sufis was at the time of Arabs' conquest of Sindh, and after that it gained prominence in the 10th and 11th centuries during the rule of the Delhi Sultans. Now they adopted the yogic postures, that Indian traditions like yogic postures, music and dance. So Sufism found adherents among both Muslims and Hindus. So they had followers not only in Muslims but also among Hindus. Dear children, the word Sufi takes its origin from Saf, meaning wool. Today also we can find the Suf designs or hand embroidery done on Sufs or wool. Sufis wore coarse garments made of wool and hence they were called Sufis. Because of their dress they wore coarse garments made of wool, they were called as Sufis. Sufism was basically Islamic but was influenced by Hindu and Buddhist, that is Mahayana ideas. It was basically Islamic but it was influenced by the Hindu religions, Hindu and Buddhist. It rejected the stringent conduct of the ulamas. Ulema is a body or a group of Muslim scholars who are recognized as having specialist knowledge of Islamic sacred law and theology. So whatever code of conduct that was given by the ulemas were rejected by the Sufis. Sufis lived in hermitages. Hermitages, Hermitages. Hermitages are places where a hermit lives, which is the dwelling place of a hermit, especially when it is small and remote. And hermit is a person who lives in solitude, who lives alone, and because of his religious discipline, he will be living all alone. And the hermitages was akin to monasteries. Monasteries, you know, where the monks live and functioned outside society, and their functioning was outside the society. Dear children, Sufis in medieval India were divided into three major orders. How many orders were the Sufis divided into? Three. They were Chisti, Suhrawardi and Firdausi. Chisti, Suhrawardi and Firdausi. Chisti, Chisti, Chisti. Suhrawardi, Suhrawardi and Firdausi, Firdausi, Firdausi. Moinuddin Chisti made Chisti order popular in India. It was Moinuddin Chisti who made the Chisti order popular in India. And Chisti died in Ajmer in 1236, and his resting place is in Ajmer Sharif Dargah in Ajmer, Rajasthan. And he passed away in Ajmer, Rajasthan, and his resting place is Ajmer Sharif Dargah. Dear children, the best known Sufi sage of the early medieval period was Nizamuddin Auliya of the Chisti order, who had a large number of followers among the ruling class in Delhi. The best known Sufi sage of early medieval period was Nizamuddin Auliya. Poet Amir Khusro was one of his distinguished followers. Amir Khusro, children, is referred to as the voice of India, or even the parrot of India, or called as a father of Urdu literature. He was an Indian Sufi singer, poet and scholar who lived under the Delhi Sultanate. So, he was a follower of Nizamuddin Auliya. Suhrawardi order was founded by an Iranian Sufi, Abdul Wahid Abu Najib. So, Suhrawardi was founded by Sufi Abdul Wahid Abu Najib. The Firdausi order was a branch of Suhrawardi order, and its activities were confined to Bihar. Before winding up, let us have a recap of what we discussed in this session. Dears, we discussed about the Bhakti movements in North India. We learned that there were two different attitudes which Hindu religious leaders had towards Islam. One group accepted what was best in Islam, the other adopted a few elements in order to prevent conversion to Islam. We learned about the exponents of Bhakti movement. Ramananda, who spread the Bhakti ideology in North India; Vallabhacharya, a Telugu philosopher; Surdas, a blind poet and musician; Mirabai, an ardent devotee of Lord Krishna; Chaitanya Deva, who popularized Krishna worship through aesthetic songs and dancing; Tulsidas, who retold the story of Rama in Ramacharita. We also learned about Sufism. Sufism adopted many native Indian concepts such as yogic postures, music and dance. Sufis in medieval India were divided into three major orders like Chisti, Suhrawardi and Firdausi. Moinuddin Chisti made Chisti order popular in India. The Suhrawardi order was founded by Iranian Sufi Abdul Wahid Abu Najib. The Firdausi order was a branch of Suhrawardi order, and its activities were confined to Bihar. Dear children, in the next session we will discuss about Kabir and Guru Nanak. That's all for today's session, my dear children. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Samacheer Kalvi Guide. Thank you.